On our Damian on Design feature today, we're going to tell you about D.school, otherwise known as Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design at Stanford University. Great New York Times piece on this, Damian Farrell, this past week, solving problems for real world using
design.
Your favorite.
My favorite thing. My favorite thing. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah.
Actually, finding people to work on real world problems, real life problems.
With design thinking. The two brothers or the one in particular who started, David Kelly, who was the founder of the D.school, and his brother Tom, they founded a company called IDEO, I-D-E-O, which started out as product design. And I've been following these two guys, and I've been an avid reader of their writings and their processes for a long time. And it was just such coincidence that you found this article about the D.school and this idea of creativity and design. And these two guys, these two brothers, talk about two things that kind of drive their whole lives. Design thinking, which leads to creative confidence. And those two statements, those two groups of words, are really the essence of everything that they do. So applying design thinking, getting up and solving problems in 2 and 3 dimensions, not just by talking about it, but graphically, and through that developing the muscle of creativity. And creativity is sort of an interesting thing. I mean, if you know, we're at a point in our lives right now where we kind of define people. Oh, he's a creative type, or she's a creative type, all right, or she's a numbers person, or he's left brain, right brain, and so on. But there's a fabulous TED Talk done by Sir Ken Robinson. It was 2006 that he did it, and it was about how education is killing creativity. And I think it's the most watched TED Talk in the history of TED, which is pretty interesting. And it's very, very amusing, and for anyone listening, it's something that everyone really should watch, this particular talk about the death of the killing of creativity in education. Because we're all born creative, even though we think we're not. I mean, what kid in kindergarten isn't creative?
I always knew I wasn't creative. I always wanted to draw better or to create the pot better or whatever it might be, and I never could like my friends.
But don't you think that if that had been cared and nurtured and someone had shown you how to do that, because the actual drawing part of it, that's technical. Drawing something is looking at proportion and where light and dark or light and shade meet, right? So the changes on a surface of whether it's someone's face or whether it's something you're drawing or designing. The rest is technique. It's how to draw the line, and it's the confidence. I watch our clients when they come in and they want to show me something that they've drawn, and they start to draw and they get embarrassed. And they start to draw those kind of drawings where people draw lots and lots of lines, thinking that that's the artistic way to communicate, as if I draw multiple lines over the same spot. And then it's, I can't draw in 3 dimensions. You know, and I've watched this for 20 years, 25 years with my clients, and it kills me. Because it is a taught skill, and it is a confidence that you develop about creativity. And it's just, you know, we're taught, and that's what Ken Robinson, his thesis in that TED Talk is, as we get older, the teaching leans much more towards the sciences, right? Mathematics, literacy, and his advocation is that creativity is as important as literacy in this TED Talk. It comes through loud and clear. And as he says, we push our kids more and more that way, and then when we get there, we give them a little bit of a lean to the right anyway, with their right brain. All right? And the creativity part of it gets lost. And that's really what the D.school is all about, is teaching these young entrepreneurs who are coming out of a business school, or going through a business school, I should say, how to think creatively, and how to let go of the computer and the mouse and get up with a pen in your hand, with a sticky note or a piece of paper, and start to diagram how process happens, how things develop. And some of the examples that they quote just in that article are fascinating.
Here's an example. One group was surprised to learn that sweeping hair off the floor is the bane of many hairdressers. That group designed a prototype for a device that sucks up clippings before they hit the floor. A few courses later, the same students were asked to apply that same analytical process to the shortage of organ donors. They came up with an idea for that as well. And it also something with ramen noodles.
How to eat ramen
How
noodles.
to eat ramen noodles.
You know, there's so much broth there, right? And those noodles are so small and slippery. I think of all three of my kids having gone through college days with ramen noodles. And they developed what sounds essentially like a fat straw. There's no pictures there's no more description of it. But that's the kind of things that places like the D.school are teaching. And that's what we're missing, I believe, is getting people to use that creative muscle, develop that muscle about how to solve a problem creatively, and to get over the idea that I'm not a creative person. Oh, you know, that person's artistic. There's a book that the two Kelly brothers have written together called Creative Confidence. And there's a story in that book about a guy named Doug Dietz, who worked for GE for many years. And he was the guy who really invented the MRI machine. All right. And for anyone who's had an MRI, it can be pretty daunting because, you know, you're strapped to a bed that rolls into this tube. You have to lie dead still, and that thing makes a heck of a lot of noise if you've had one. It makes this loud crashing noise as that thing spins around your body. Well, Doug got an opportunity a number of years after, and this thing was being promoted to the world design business for all sorts of design awards, and it was an incredible breakthrough. But he went to go see an installation and watch someone being brought in, and it was a young girl who was so completely nervous that she was actually getting ill from the thought of having to lie still for that length of time. And so they had to actually bring in an anesthetist to calm her down. And that just shook his foundation, that he had this thing that he had invented that was to have no pain and be able to get inside and see the minuscule detail of a person's body to be able to diagnose, in fact, was responsible for extraordinary anxiety. I mean, there are people who won't go in those things unless you get knocked out.
Right.
Right. And so he went about very quickly changing all of that, and especially for the pediatric cases. And so now they've created these adventures where the graphics around the entrance to the tunnel suggest things like a pirate ship. So it's the wheel on a pirate ship that you're going into. And they thought to pitch the story of the adventure that the kids are about to have. And so that's such a great example of design thinking and creativity. Solve one big problem, created another one, unintended consequences, and quickly came up with a creative way to deal with that as well, by creating an adventure and a story out of it, by introducing graphics on the entrance to the tunnel, so that as the kids come into it, there's a whole story attached. They're not thinking about this machine that they're being slid into and the noise that this thing is going to create.
But why is it that we have to witness something like that or experience it for ourselves? You know, they say, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Why is it we don't anticipate these kinds of things in the creative process of putting them together in the first place? And I wonder if it's because you're so consumed with the nuts and bolts or the chemistry of something or the physicality of it versus
I think so.
Thinking outside the box.
But I think that a good creative, a design thinker will make that an iterative process. Now that's an expensive process, that particular one.
Right.
All right. But they were able to adapt through design thinking. But I think you're right. I think you if you're into something that's so big, that's so new, that's so novel, yes, I'm sure you must get caught up in the process. And I see that with my own work as well, the wood for the trees kind of thing. And it does, in fact, one of the things I do when I'm designing is, after a while, I'll actually turn the paper upside down, because I've been used to, say I'm working on a house plan, and I'm used to it oriented in one direction to myself. I'll literally turn it around and design, not upside down, but my numbering and lettering might have been one way, but now it's upside down, and look at it from a different perspective.
And do you see things differently?
Yeah, I do.